Craig Boyd's blood-stained combat boots pounded into Bajoran skulls, human bodies, and metal flooring as he sprinted down the smoke-filled corridor of Bunker 1, humanity's last lifeline against alien annihilation. An explosion rocked the outpost. Armored bulkheads groaned. Flickering lights went dark. Distant screams and weapons fire echoed closer. Craig stumbled into the ruined command center, grabbing the edge of a sparking console to keep himself upright. Major Briggs lay dead in a pool of blood and brain matter, half his head vaporized by a plasma blast. His glassy eyes stared into oblivion. Craig gritted his teeth and snatched up the command headset from Briggs's corpse. They were being overrun. Bajoran shock troops swarmed through the breached perimeter as their APCs disgorged more infantry into the valley, hundreds against a few dozen bleeding, exhausted human defenders. "I'm trying, I just need more time," Fletcher yelled back, panic lacing his voice. Craig checked his rifle's ammo counter. 15 rounds left. He grabbed Briggs' sidearm and spare mags. Not nearly enough. They had to hold. Earth's resistance depended on this bunker. With the major cities occupied and defense forces shattered, only the Rocky Mountain outpost could rally the scattered insurgents. But none of that mattered if the Bajorans took the transmitter. Craig would buy Fletcher the time he needed, no matter the cost. Alien voices shouted beyond the command center. A blinding flash. The hallway exploded in a storm of shrapnel and fire. Craig hit the floor as debris rained down. His ears rang. Smoke choked his lungs. Bajoran troopers surged into the room, plasma rifles blazing. Craig rolled to his knees and returned fire. 2 hostiles dropped, then a third. Briggs' pistol bucked in his other hand. A bolt seared past his face. Another chewed through the command console. Warning klaxons blared. Craig's rifle ran dry. He hurled it at a Bajoran, ducked under a swing of its blade-tipped carbine, and drove his combat knife up under its chin. Hot blood spurted over his hands. The Bajoran crumpled. More charged in. Craig yanked his blade free and met them head-on. This was it. No reinforcements, no retreat. Today he and his soldiers would make their final stand. They would fight to their last breath, defy the Bajoran onslaught, and die as warriors. The odds said they should fail. But maybe, just maybe, they could hold the line long enough for a chance at human victory. Even if it killed every last one of them. Craig's heart hammered against his ribs as he surveyed the grim faces of his battered squad, hunkered down in the transmitter room. Bajoran shock troops closed in, their heavy bootfalls and guttural shouts growing louder. Fletcher worked frantically at the transmitter console, sweat pouring down his soot-streaked face. A desperate idea crystallized in Craig's mind. Crazy, reckless, but their only shot. "Fletcher, keep working on that transmitter," Craig ordered. "The rest of you, we're going to rig the reactor to blow sky high and take these alien bastards with us." Shocked silence met his words. Then Corporal Hicks stepped forward, lips pursed. He scanned the room. "The rest of you, buy us time. Hold the Bajorans back from the transmitter at all costs. We'll be back, or we'll see you in hell." Leaving Fletcher and the remnants of the platoon to fortify the transmitter room, Craig and Hicks slipped out a side passage into dank maintenance tunnels. The din of battle faded behind them as they crept through the dimly lit maze. Hicks halted, raising a fist, voices up ahead, Bajoran. 3 troopers emerged from a cross-tunnel. Craig and Hicks melted into the shadows, breath held, pulses pounding. As the first Bajoran passed their alcove, Craig lunged. His knife flashed, slicing the trooper's throat in a spray of crimson. Hicks tackled the second, bearing it to the ground and snapping its neck with ruthless efficiency. The third, Bajoran whirled, plasma rifle rising, only to catch Craig's hurled blade in its chest. Craig yanked his gore-slicked knife free and motioned Hicks forward. No time to think, no room for error. All that mattered was reaching the reactor. Earth's fate hung in the balance. They pushed deeper into the labyrinth of tunnels. Craig's senses strained for any hint of threat, nerves wound tighter than razor wire. Wait. Movement ahead. A plasma bolt seared from the gloom, clipping Craig's arm in a blaze of agony. He hit the ground rolling, rifle snapping up to return fire. Hicks charged past him, blasting point-blank at the Bajoran ambush party. Smoke, blood, screams. Craig scrambled to his feet, shrugging off the pain. No time to pause. Have to keep moving. He and Hicks leapt over the twitching alien corpses and raced onward. At last, the reactor chamber loomed before them, a cavernous space dominated by thrumming alien machinery, and standing between them and their target, a full squad of jet-black armored Bajoran elites. "Cover me!" Craig yelled to Hicks, then sprinted for the reactor housing, zigzagging through a hail of plasma bolts. His rifle chattered on full auto, dropping 3 Bajorans in a heartbeat. White-hot pain exploded in his leg. Craig stumbled, Hicks covering fire, ripping apart the Bajoran ranks above him. He dragged himself towards the reactor controls, one agonizing pull at a time. Plasma bolts stitched the ground around Craig. Almost there. Safety protocols flashed warnings across the reactor console. He ignored them, drilling 2 more elites clean through their helmets, then ripped open the control panel. Draining the last of his strength, he hauled himself up and began the excruciating crawl back to the command center. Alone, his life bleeding out, Craig shoved all thoughts of Hicks aside. The mission. Have to complete the mission. He dragged his broken body into the command room and collapsed against a bank of flickering monitors, Briggs's corpse still staring glassily at nothing. Craig looked up at the screens, praying silently. There, a faint signal pulsing from the transmitter console. They'd done it. The distress call was broadcasting, Earth's coordinates locked in. The master screen showed Bajorans swarming the ruined transmitter chamber, gunning down the last few human defenders, but it was too late. The message was away. With a pained, blood-flecked smile, Craig retrieved the detonator from his belt. This was the end, but maybe, just maybe, not the end for humanity. His hand closed around the detonator, a parting gift for the Bajoran invaders. A final act of defiance from Craig Boyd and every Marine, soldier and civilian who had fought and died at their side. And Bunker 1 vanished in an apocalyptic maelstrom of all-consuming hellfire. The mountain fortress erupted, instantly vaporized along with the Bajorans massed at its heart. Draco watched the nuclear fireball scorch the sky and howled with uncomprehending rage as an entire detachment winked out of existence. When the shockwave passed and the dust began to settle, Bajoran scouts combed the cratered, drifting ashes that had been the humans' last redoubt. They found only pulverized debris and melted slag. No survivors. They had won. But the price in Bajoran blood had been astronomical. And unbeknownst to the aliens, the price was yet higher still. For across the battered Earth, the Resistance received a single fragmented transmission, coordinates to a rally point, a toehold, a fighting chance for humanity's survival. The global insurgency began to gather, to mobilize, united with new purpose by the martyred heroes of Bunker 1. Craig Boyd was gone, but his sacrifice, his invincible willpower, would live on in every human still drawing breath, still willing to resist. The Bajorans had conquered the Earth, but now the real war was about to begin. The coordinates from Bunker 1's final transmission led survivors to a hidden valley deep in the Appalachian wilderness. Sam Adler stood atop a rocky outcrop, scanning the surrounding forest with night vision binoculars. His weathered face was set in grim lines as he watched the last stragglers of humanity trickle into the makeshift camp below. "How many?" asked his second-in-command, Sarah. Sam lowered the binoculars. "Not enough, maybe 200. We lost too many getting here." They descended to the valley floor, where exhausted refugees huddled around campfires. Sam's voice carried as he addressed the crowd. "Listen up. I know you're tired. I know you've lost people. But Craig Boyd and the heroes of Bunker 1 gave their lives so we could keep fighting. We won't let their sacrifice be in vain. Tomorrow, we start building a real base. We'll hit the Bajorans where it hurts and take back our planet." Over the following weeks, the Resistance dug in. They constructed hidden bunkers, set up early warning systems, and scavenged for supplies. Sam led hit-and-run raids on Bajoran convoys, gradually building up their arsenal of weapons and equipment. During one such raid, Sam's team ambushed a Bajoran prison transport. As plasma bolts flew, they breached the hull and freed the human captives inside. Among them was Dr. Lena Novak, her lab coat stained with blood and grime. Back at base, Lena shared vital intelligence. The Bajorans, they're building something big, a wormhole generator. If they finish it, they'll bring in reinforcements from their home galaxy. Earth will be lost forever. Sam's fists clenched. Then we stopped them, regardless of the cost. They planned the assault meticulously. Under cover of night, Sam led a strike team to infiltrate the heavily guarded Bajoran research facility. Silenced weapons dropped sentries as they crept through the perimeter. But an alarm blared, and soon the air filled with plasma fire. "Push forward," Sam shouted as they battled through waves of Bajoran troops. Resistance fighters fell left and right, but the survivors pressed on, driven by desperation. Sam and Lena finally reached the generator control room. As Lena's fingers flew across alien consoles, planting demolition charges, the door exploded inward. Draco strode through the smoke, his mandibles clicking in anticipation. "Foolish humans," the Bajoran commander hissed. "This generator is but the first step. Soon we will dominate your entire galaxy." Sam raised his rifle, but Draco was faster. A plasma bolt seared Sam's arm. He stumbled back, finger closing on the detonator trigger. The world erupted in fire and thunder. Sam felt himself hurled through the air as the generator exploded. Then darkness claimed him. He awoke to the acrid stench of smoke and burning metal. Lena lay unconscious nearby, blood matting her hair. Of Draco and the rest of the strike team, there was no sign. Gritting his teeth against the pain, Sam hauled Lena to her feet. They limped away from the smouldering ruin of the facility, the taste of victory bitter in their mouths. Days later, Sam stood before the assembled resistance. Their numbers were fewer, but a fire burned in their eyes. A ragged cheer went up. As the crowd dispersed, Sam caught Lena's gaze. An unspoken agreement passed between them. Draco was still out there, and one day they would make him pay. Sam turned to study the map table, mind already racing with plans for their next strike. The guerrilla war had only just begun. Sam's lungs burned as he sprinted through the dense forest, branches whipping his face. Lena stumbled behind him, clutching her side where a plasma bolt had grazed her. The distant whine of Bajoran dropships spurred them on. "Keep moving," Sam hissed, grabbing Lena's arm to steady her. "We can't let them find us." They pushed on through the night, ears straining for any sign of pursuit. After what felt like hours, Sam spotted a familiar landmark, a jagged rock formation marking a hidden resistance cache. He tapped a sequence on a concealed panel, revealing a cramped underground shelter. "Get in," he ordered, helping Lena down before sealing the hatch behind them. As Lena collapsed onto a cot, Sam fumbled for the emergency med kit. "Hold still," he muttered, cleaning and bandaging her wound. "We'll rest here, then try to link up with the others." Days blurred together as they evaded Bajoran patrols, catching snippets of transmissions on a salvaged radio. The news was grim. Draco had launched a vicious crackdown, massacring entire settlements suspected of aiding the resistance. On the fifth day, they stumbled upon a small group of resistance fighters, the remnants of their strike team. Grim faces told the tale before words were spoken. "We're all that's left," a haggard soldier named Rodriguez reported. "The rest were captured or killed. Kyle's MIA." They set out at dawn, picking their way through treacherous terrain. As they neared an abandoned industrial zone, plasma fire erupted from multiple directions. Bajoran hunter-killer squads had been lying in wait. He watched in horror as Rodriguez caught a bolt to the chest, crumpling mid-stride. There was no time to mourn. Sam laid down, suppressing fire, covering the survivors' retreat into the hulking ruins of the industrial facility. "This place is rigged with old invasion-era traps," he shouted over the din of battle. "Watch your step and stick close." They navigated a maze of corridors and catwalks, plasma bolts sizzling past. Sam triggered salvaged explosives as they went, collapsing passages behind them to slow their pursuers. Suddenly the sound of human weapons joined the fray. A familiar voice crackled over Sam's radio. "Cavalry's here, boss. Get to the east loading dock." "Cover me!" Sam bellowed, sprinting to provide covering fire for Kyle's squad. The air filled with plasma bolts and bullets as humans and Bajorans clashed in deadly crossfire. In the chaos of extraction, Sam lost sight of Kyle. It wasn't until they regrouped at the hidden base that he learned the terrible truth. Kyle had been captured. Sam banged his head against the war room table. "We're getting him back," he growled, "whatever it takes." Dr. Novak laid out schematics of the main Bajoran fortress. "There's a hidden entrance," she explained, "used for smuggling prisoners. If we can get inside—" Under cover of darkness, they slipped into the bowels of the Bajoran stronghold. Sam split his forces, sending diversionary teams to create chaos while he led the main rescue party. They hadn't gone far when alarms began to blare. Sam cursed. Knowing their window of opportunity was closing fast, they fought their way through waves of Bajoran security, desperation lending strength to their arms. As they neared the cell block, a chilling voice rang out. "So good of you to join us, humans." Sam's blood ran cold as Draco himself stepped into view, flanked by black-armored elites. With a snarl of defiance, Sam opened fire. Sam squeezed the trigger, unleashing a hail of bullets at the advancing Bajoran guards. The cell block corridor erupted in chaos as plasma bolts sizzled past, leaving scorch marks on the metal walls. "Push forward!" Sam shouted, ducking behind a support pillar. To his left, Martinez dropped an alien warrior with a well-placed headshot. On his right, Chen lobbed a grenade, the explosion sending Bajoran limbs flying. Through the smoke and gunfire, Sam caught a glimpse of Draco. The Bajoran commander's mandibles clicked rapidly as he barked orders in his guttural native tongue. His black-armored elites surged forward, their energy weapons cutting down 2 human fighters in seconds. Sam gritted his teeth, feeling the tide of battle turning against them. "Covering fire!" he yelled, sprinting to a new position. As he ran, an incendiary blast rocked the corridor. The concussive force slammed Sam into the wall, his ears ringing. Through blurred vision, he saw several of his team engulfed in flames, their agonized screams cutting off abruptly. Shaking off the disorientation, Sam realized he'd lost sight of Draco in the confusion. No time to dwell on it. They had to find Kyle. "This way," Dr. Novak called out, gesturing toward a heavy blast door. Sam nodded, motioning for the surviving team members to follow. They blasted the lock and burst into the cell, weapons raised. The sight that greeted them made Sam's stomach churn. Kyle hung limply from restraints, his body a mass of cuts, burns, and bruises. His eyes fluttered open at their entrance, a weak smile crossing his battered face. As Dr. Novak worked to free Kyle, Sam heard the thundering footsteps of Bajoran reinforcements. "We've got company," he shouted, laying down suppressing fire into the corridor. Plasma bolts streaked past, one grazing his arm. Sam hissed in pain, but kept firing. With Kyle supported between 2 fighters, they staggered out of the cell into a maelstrom of weapons fire. Bajoran troops poured in from both ends of the corridor, cutting off their escape. "Fall back," Sam ordered, his mind racing. "The service tunnels, it's our only shot." They retreated deeper into the fortress, half carrying, half dragging Kyle. Sam's second-in-command, Jackson, brought up the rear, tossing grenades to slow their pursuers. As they reached a narrow maintenance shaft, Jackson met Sam's eyes. "I'll hold them off. Get Kyle out of here." Before Sam could protest, Jackson shoved him into the tunnel and pulled the pin on his last grenade. The explosion rocked the passageway, collapsing it behind them and burying Jackson with their Bajoran hunters. Sam allowed himself a moment of grief for his friend before pushing on. They wound through cramped access ways, the sounds of pursuit never far behind. Rounding a corner, they stumbled into an ambush. Bajoran fire cut down Chen and Martinez before Sam could react. "Go!" Sam shouted to Dr. Novak and the 2 remaining operatives. He provided covering fire as they maneuvered Kyle toward a rusted grate in the floor. Plasma bolts seared the air around them as they dropped into the sewer below. The fated water closed over Sam's head as he followed them down. He surfaced, gasping, and saw Draco's face appear at the grate above, mandibles spread wide in a silent roar of frustration. They swam with the current, fighting to keep their heads above water in the pitch-black tunnel. Sam's lungs burned, his limbs leaden with exhaustion. Just as he felt consciousness slipping away, his outstretched hand struck metal bars. Another grate. With the last of his strength, Sam forced it open. They clambered out into a refuse-strewn alley, coughing and retching. But there was no time to rest. The whine of Bajoran dropships filled the air, searchlights sweeping the streets. "We're surrounded," Dr. Novak whispered, her face pale with fear. Sam looked at Kyle, barely conscious and fading fast. He made his decision. "I'll draw them off, get Kyle to safety." As Sam prepared to make his suicidal rush, a familiar voice crackled over his battered radio. "Cavalry's here, boss. Duck and cover." Resistance fighters materialized from hidden positions, unleashing a devastating crossfire on the Bajoran patrols. The aliens, caught completely off guard, fell in droves. In the chaos of the sudden uprising, Sam and his team fought their way through the streets. They finally reached a nondescript building, a resistance safe house. Inside, Dr. Novak immediately set to work on Kyle's injuries. "Stay with us, Kyle," she muttered, hands moving swiftly to stem the bleeding. Bleeding. Her practiced hands moved swiftly, applying pressure and administering emergency treatments. Sam turned away from the grim scene, his mind racing. They'd rescued Kyle, but at a terrible cost. The safe house wouldn't remain secure for long. They needed to regroup and plan their next move. Days passed in a blur of tense planning sessions and furtive supply runs. Kyle's condition improved slowly under Dr. Novak's care. As soon as he could speak coherently, Sam was at his bedside, hungry for information. "What did you learn in there, Kyle?" Sam asked, leaning in close. Kyle's eyes darted around the room, his voice barely above a whisper. "The Bajorans, they're planning something big. Draco was gloating about it during the interrogations." Before Kyle could elaborate, alarms blared throughout the safe house. Sam rushed to the command center, where a grainy video feed showed chaos erupting across the city. Bajoran ships unleashed a hellish barrage on civilian areas. The air filled with screams as strange greenish clouds descended on fleeing crowds. Sam's fists clenched as reports flooded in from other resistance cells. The attacks weren't isolated. Draco had launched a full-scale pacification campaign against suspected strongholds. "This ends now," Sam growled, slamming his palm on the table. He turned to his assembled lieutenants. "Kyle's intel on their command bunkers. We use it. We hit them where it hurts." The next hours were a whirlwind of preparation. Sam handpicked his strike team from the most hardened survivors of their recent battles. As they geared up, Kyle approached, still unsteady on his feet. "I'm coming with you," Kyle stated, his eyes burning with drive. Sam nodded, clasping his friend's shoulder. Wouldn't have it any other way. Under cover of darkness, they slipped into the sprawling tunnel network beneath the occupied city. The passageways grew narrower as they approached the Bajoran stronghold, forcing them to crawl single file through choking dust and debris. Suddenly, the lead scout held up a fist. Sam inched forward, peering around a bend. A sleek, spider-like sentry gun stood guard at an intersection, its multiple barrels scanning for intruders. Sam signaled to his demolitions expert. The man crept forward, attaching a small device to the wall. With a muffled thump, an electromagnetic pulse disabled the sentry. They pushed on, knowing the clock was ticking. More obstacles awaited them: laser grids, poison gas traps, and roving Bajoran patrols. Each challenge tested their ingenuity and purpose. Sam watched grimly as their numbers dwindled, good men and women falling to ensure the mission's success. They reached a final blast door, its surface gleaming with alien alloys. Sergeant Davis, their point man, studied the control panel. "I can overwrite it," Davis said, "but it'll trigger alarms. Someone needs to stay behind, keep it open manually." Before Sam could respond, Davis was already moving. "It's been an honor, sir," he said, saluting crisply. The door slid open, and Davis stepped inside the control room. "Go!" Sam hesitated for a split second, then led his remaining team through. The sounds of plasma fire erupted behind them as Davis made his last stand. The command center was a hive of activity. Bajoran officers barked orders as subordinates scurried between glowing consoles. Sam's team burst in, their weapons blazing. The element of surprise gave them a momentary advantage as they cut down the unprepared aliens. As Sam took cover behind an overturned table, he saw Dr. Novak slip away from the main fight. She'd located a central computer hub and was working furiously to access its systems. The firefight intensified. Sam watched in horror as Bajoran reinforcements poured in, their superior weaponry cutting down his fighters. Just as it seemed they might be overwhelmed, a familiar, chilling voice cut through the chaos. "Enough!" The massive form of Draco stepped into view, hefting a cannon that crackled with barely contained energy. With a single sweep, he vaporized 3 human resistance fighters. Sam rose from cover, emptying his clip at the Bajoran commander. Draco shrugged off the bullets, his alien physiology far tougher than a human's. He returned fire, the plasma blast so close it singed Sam's hair as he dove for safety. "I will end you myself, human," Draco snarled, advancing relentlessly. Sam scrambled backwards, searching desperately for a weapon that could penetrate Draco's defenses. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Dr. Novak frantically working at a console. She caught his gaze and nodded. The self-destruct was armed. From a hidden vantage point, Kyle opened fire on Draco. The distraction was enough for Sam to close the distance, engaging the alien in hand-to-hand combat. It was like fighting a brick wall, but Sam's fury lent him strength. "Fall back!" Sam ordered as alarms began to blare. He delivered a final, desperate blow to Draco's face, then turned to run. Kyle appeared at his side, limping but mobile. "This way!" he yelled, leading them down a maintenance shaft. They sprinted through twisting corridors, the sounds of pursuit close behind. The complex shook with the first explosions of the self-destruct sequence. Sam risked a glance back, seeing Draco's enraged face just before a blast door slammed shut between them. They emerged into the cool night air seconds before the bunker imploded in a massive fireball. The shockwave knocked them off their feet, showering them with debris. As the dust settled, Sam struggled to his feet, surveying the destruction. Their victory was short-lived. The night sky lit up with the eerie glow of Bajoran wormhole gates activating across the city. Sam watched in horror as wave after wave of enemy ships poured through, far more than they could hope to combat. "We have to go," Dr. Novak urged, supporting a barely conscious Kyle. "There's nothing more we can do here." Sam nodded grimly, keying his radio. "All units fall back to emergency rally points. I repeat, full strategic retreat." As they melted into the shadows of the ruined city, Sam's mind raced. Their conventional tactics were no longer enough. They needed a new strategy, something bold and unexpected. He turned to Dr. Novak, his eyes blazing with desperate intensity. "I have an idea," he began, "but it's going to cost us. Maybe everything." Dr. Novak met his gaze steadily. "Whatever it takes, Sam, whatever it takes." Sam laid out his audacious plan. The resistance fighters huddled around a battered holotable, faces grim as they absorbed the enormity of what he proposed. Hijacking a Bajoran wormhole gate seemed impossible, suicidal even. But faced with the overwhelming alien reinforcements pouring through newly activated gates across Earth, they had no choice. After hours of heated debate, the resistance leadership reluctantly gave their approval. Sam and Kyle pored over intelligence reports, identifying a remote Arctic facility as their best shot at breaching the Bajoran defenses. Days later, Sam's strike team shivered in the belly of a stealth transport, plummeting through the frigid polar night. Their chutes snapped open with muffled cracks, depositing them in deep snow. Sam signaled silently, and they converged on the sprawling alien complex below. 2 Bajoran guards patrolled the perimeter fence, their breath visible in the sub-zero air. Kyle crept forward, a vibro blade glinting in his hand. In one fluid motion, he slit the first alien's throat. Before the second could react, Sam's garrote wire found its mark. They breached the facility's outer defenses. Dr. Novak's hacked security codes granting them access to the underground levels. The team moved swiftly through dimly lit corridors, neutralizing isolated Bajoran personnel with ruthless efficiency. As they neared the gate control room, alarms blared. Sam cursed under his breath. "They're onto us, move!" Plasma bolts seared the air as Bajoran security forces converged. Sam's team took cover, returning fire. The acrid smell of ozone filled the air as energy weapons discharged. 2 resistance fighters fell, their bodies smoking from direct hits. Sam shouted into his comm, "Novak, we need that gate open now." Dr. Novak's fingers flew across alien control panels, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Almost there. Got it." The massive wormhole gate hummed to life, its shimmering surface rippling like quicksilver. As the surviving team members prepared to make a break for it, the far bulkhead exploded inward. Through the smoke strode a towering Bajoran, easily 8 feet tall, flanked by a squad of heavily armed warriors. The alien commander's eyes locked onto Sam, mandibles spreading in a predatory grin. "Kyle, with me!" Sam bellowed, charging forward. The 2 humans threw themselves at the Bajoran leader, a flurry of desperate blows. Sam felt ribs crack as a massive fist connected. He staggered back, tasting blood. Kyle launched himself onto the alien's back, trying to find purchase on its armored hide. Dr. Novak and the remaining fighters poured through the gate, shouting for Sam and Kyle to follow. The wormhole's energy field crackled ominously, destabilizing from stray weapons fire. With a roar of effort, Sam landed a crushing blow to the Bajoran commander's face. The alien stumbled, giving Kyle the opening to drive a knife into a weak point in its armor. As the massive body fell, Sam felt white-hot pain lance through his side. He looked down to see an energy blade protruding from his abdomen. Kyle grabbed Sam's arm, half dragging him toward the gate. "Come on!" Sam's vision swam as they plunged into the shimmering vortex. He felt reality twist and stretch around him. When his senses cleared, he found himself in a vast chamber filled with sleek Bajoran ships. Thousands of alien warriors turned to face the small group of human intruders. Sam struggled to his feet, blood seeping from his wound. He met the eyes of his battered comrades, seeing in them the same stubborn persistence that burned in his own heart. They had come to sow chaos in the heart of the enemy's power. Now was their chance. "Let's make this count," Sam growled, raising his weapon. Weapon. The metallic tang of ozone filled Sam's nostrils as he emerged from the wormhole into chaos. Thousands of Bajoran warriors surrounded them, their chitinous armor gleaming under harsh, artificial light. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then all hell broke loose. Human fighters poured through the gate behind Sam, weapons blazing. The air filled with plasma bolts and the screech of energy weapons. Sam dove for cover behind a stack of cargo crates, his wound protesting with every movement. "Kyle," Sam shouted over the din of battle, "take your squad and secure that control station." Kyle nodded, face set with grim focus. He gestured to a group of fighters and they moved out in a tight formation. Sam watched as they fought their way across the hangar bay, Kyle's vibroblade flashing as he cut down Bajoran after Bajoran. Sam rallied the remaining survivors, forming a defensive ring around the wormhole gate. Waves of Bajoran troops crashed against their position. Sam's rifle grew hot in his hands as he fired again and again, each shot finding its mark in alien flesh. In the control station, Dr. Novak's fingers flew across alien terminals. Her eyes widened as information scrolled across the screens. "Sam," she called through the comm, "they're prepping a massive invasion force for Earth." Sam cursed. "Can you stop it?" "Negative," Novak replied, "but I'm sending the intel back through the gate. Our people need to know what's coming." A Bajoran dropship screamed overhead, its weapons strafing the human position. Sam felt the heat of near misses as he rolled to new cover. "We need to hit their ships," Sam ordered. "Target the docks and gantries, cripple as many as you can." Human fighters peeled off from the main battle, launching suicidal runs against the departing Bajoran warships. Explosions blossomed across the shipyard as vital systems were destroyed. Kyle's voice crackled over the comm. "Sam, we've got anti-air batteries online." Sam looked up to see streaks of fire tear through the Bajoran air patrols. But for every alien craft that fell, human defenders paid in blood. In the command nexus, Dr. Novak's face was illuminated by flickering displays. "Sam, I have an idea. It's crazy, but it might work." "I'm initiating an overload in the main reactor," Novak explained. "It'll take out the whole shipyard." Alarms blared throughout the facility. The Bajoran assault intensified as their commanders realized the humans' intent. "They're pushing for the command center," Kyle shouted. "We can't hold them back much longer." Sam gathered the remnants of his team. "This is it," he said, meeting each fighter's eyes. "One last push. Buy Novak the time she needs." They charged into the teeth of the Bajoran onslaught. Sam's fists and feet were a blur as he engaged the aliens in brutal close-quarters combat. Beside him, Kyle moved with deadly grace, his blade finding weak points in Bajoran armor. Step by bloodied step they were forced back. Sam and Kyle found themselves making a last stand near the reactor core, its housing vibrating ominously. A new wormhole tore open nearby. Sam's heart sank as he recognized the massive figure that emerged. Draco. The Bajoran overlord's eyes locked onto Sam, filled with hate. Around them, the reactor vents hissed and popped, on the verge of catastrophic failure. "Adler," Draco roared, "your pathetic resistance ends here." Sam raised his weapon, ignoring the burning agony of his wounds. He knew the next few moments would decide the fate of humanity. A new wormhole tore open, spilling forth a horde of Bajoran reinforcements. At their head strode Draco, his eyes burning with murderous rage. The Overlord's massive frame dwarfed even his elite warriors as he charged headlong towards Sam's position. Sam gripped his rifle tighter, ignoring the searing pain of his wounds. "Defensive positions," he shouted to his remaining fighters. "Give everything you've got." The two forces clashed in a maelstrom of violence. Plasma bolts seared the air as hand-to-hand combat erupted across the reactor chamber. Sam watched in horror as Draco tore through their ranks, shrugging off attacks that would have felled any human. Kyle appeared at Sam's side, his face streaked with blood and grime. "We can't hold them." "We have to." Sam fired a burst into an advancing Bajoran, dropping the alien. "The reactor has to blow." Draco's massive fist connected with a human fighter, crushing the man's skull. The Overlord's eyes locked onto Sam, and he began to plow through the melee. Sam raised his rifle, squeezing off shot after shot. The plasma bolt splashed harmlessly against Draco's armored hide. Before Sam could react, Draco was upon him. A vicious backhand sent Sam flying. He slammed into a control panel, ribs cracking from the impact. Gasping for breath, he barely managed to roll away from Draco's follow-up strike. "I will savor your death, human," Draco snarled, advancing relentlessly. Sam scrambled to his feet, drawing his combat knife. He knew he was outmatched but refused to go down without a fight. Their battle raged across catwalks and gantries, each blow threatening to send them plummeting into the reactor core below. A deafening explosion rocked the chamber. Sam risked a glance to see Kyle manning a jury-rigged heavy weapon, pouring fire into Draco's flank. The Overlord staggered, giving Sam a precious opening. With a primal yell, Sam hurled himself at Draco. His knife found a chink in the alien's armor, drawing ichor. Draco howled in pain and fury, redoubling his assault. Warning klaxons blared as the reactor began to destabilize. Dr. Novak's voice crackled over the comm. "Detonation sequence initiated. You have to get out now." Sam barely registered her words as he fought for his life. Draco's claws raked across his chest, leaving deep furrows. The chamber shook as secondary explosions rippled through the shipyard. Through a haze of pain, Sam saw Kyle gesturing frantically toward a shimmering wormhole aperture. The few surviving humans were making a desperate dash for escape. Sam knew what he had to do. With the last of his strength, he grappled Draco, steering their battle toward the reactor's meltdown epicenter. If he could just buy his people a few more seconds. Draco's fist smashed into Sam's face, sending him reeling. As his vision swam, Sam saw the alien's eyes widen with sudden realization. They were both trapped in the kill zone, with no hope of escape. The reactor reached critical mass. Sam met Draco's gaze one final time, a shared moment of understanding passing between mortal enemies. Then the world turned to fire and light. The Bajoran shipyard vanished in a newborn star of thermonuclear fury. The shockwave rippled outward, shredding fleeing warships and defense platforms. As the inferno consumed all in its path, the wormhole connecting Earth to the Bajoran homeworld collapsed. Dr. Lena Novak crawled to her feet, her face streaked with soot and blood. "Is everyone all right?" she called out, her voice hoarse. Kyle did a quick head count. 12. Only 12 left out of their entire team. The weight of their losses crushed down on him, threatening to suffocate him more surely than the moon's meager atmosphere. "We did it," a young resistance fighter wheezed. "We actually fucking did it." Kyle nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. They had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes, crippling the Bajoran invasion force, but at what cost? A low rumble drew their attention skyward. Flaming debris rained down, the remains of once mighty warships reduced to twisted scrap. Kyle watched as a massive chunk of hull plummeted towards the surface, trailing fire. "Take cover!" he bellowed. The impact shook the ground, nearly knocking them off their feet. A plume of dust and rock erupted on the horizon. Without a word, they began stumbling towards the crash site. As they crested a ridge, Kyle's breath caught in his throat. There, in a smoking crater, lay the mangled remains of a ship he recognized all too well, the Butcher of Worlds, Draco's personal flagship. "It can't be," Novak whispered. But it was. A figure emerged from the inferno, its flesh charred and smoking. Even from this distance, there was no mistaking the massive form of Draco, the Bajoran overlord. Kyle raised his rifle, but Novak was faster. The crack of her shot echoed across the barren plain. Draco's head snapped up, his ruined eyes searching blindly. "Again!" Kyle shouted. Novak fired again and again. The others joined in, pouring fire at the seemingly unstoppable alien, but Draco kept coming, shrugging off wounds that would have felled any other being. Draco was upon them in seconds, moving with impossible speed. Novak's scream cut off abruptly as the Overlord's jaws clamped down. Kyle watched in horror as his comrades fell, one by one, torn apart by Draco's relentless assault. He fought like a man possessed, firing until his weapon clicked empty, then swinging it like a club. But it wasn't enough. Never enough. Kyle found himself alone, surrounded by the broken bodies of his friends. He stumbled, falling to his knees in the blood-soaked lunar dust. Draco's massive form loomed over him, blocking out the stars. With the last of his strength, Kyle spat at the alien's feet. He stared up defiantly, waiting for the final blow. But it never came. Instead, an unearthly howl built in Draco's throat. The sound grew, resonating at a frequency that made Kyle's bones ache. Light blazed from within the Overlord's form, growing brighter and brighter, until Kyle had to shield his eyes. When he looked again, Draco was gone. In his place lay a twisted husk of metal, etched with strange symbols. Kyle stared at it, uncomprehending. The adrenaline drained from his system, leaving him cold and empty. He was alone, the last human in a galaxy that had tried to exterminate his entire species. Kyle's eyes drifted closed. He took a final, ragged breath, tasting ash and victory and futility on his tongue. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.